He liked to dress in the very, very best, from his head down to his toes. This is a story that tells the tale of the Emperor's new clothes. The Emperor's new clothes.
The Emperor's new clothes. Once upon a time, long ago, there was an emperor who was so vain he spent all his time purchasing fine suits of silk and satin and sparkling jewelry made of diamonds, rubies, and pearls. He ignored all his subjects and even his family, choosing to spend most of his time preening in front of the mirror. Of course, if there were a banquet or a ball, he would attend in order to show off his latest suit and jangle his expensive jewelry, thus ensuring he was, as always, the center of attention. The emperor was so vain, he used to change his suits at least 6 times a day.
"Oh, how wonderful I look in my finery,"
he would say, much to the courtiers' amusement. "He's so vain," said a passing scullery maid, as the emperor flounced through the hallways of the palace, wearing a bright pink flowing gown and a pearl-encrusted crown, so tall that it broke the chandeliers as he wafted by.
Oops.
One day, 2 rascals calling themselves tailors arrived at the emperor's palace. They managed to secure an audience with the emperor on the basis that they were the most exclusive weavers in the world, catering only to the richest of sultans, emperors, and kings. The rascals convinced the emperor that the cloth they used to create their wonderful attire was second to none. In fact, the suit they proposed to make for the emperor would be completely invisible to anyone not worthy of appreciating the exquisite nature of their fine work.
"This sounds marvelous,"
said the emperor.
"Just by wearing such a suit in public, I will be able to discover which subjects and servants are unfit to work for me here at the palace. I will also find out who is clever and worthy of my wonderful company."
He gave the so-called tailors 12 bags of gold and told them to get to work on his new suit immediately.
That's good.
The rascals set up their looms and pretended to work hard on the emperor's new clothes. In fact, they did nothing more than go through the motions of making the suit.
"Just keep looking busy," said one. "Don't worry," said the other. "I will. I want to leave this palace alive with 12 bags of gold."
Every now and then, the emperor would pop his head around the door to check how his new suit was developing.
"How's it going?"
The rascals at their empty looms managed to assure His Highness that the job was almost complete. The emperor initially convinced himself that he could see the marvelous work created by these 2 rogues and showed several of his close advisers the work in progress. In fear of being perceived as a simpleton, one minister said, "It's going to be a remarkable suit." "I agree," said another, covering up for the fact that he could see nothing at all. As the word spread around the kingdom of this illustrious and expensive suit, the impostors managed to negotiate several more bags of gold in order to complete their work and make sure that the suit was to be the finest ever seen. The emperor brought his most trusty officer to see the impostors weaving the invisible suit. "What do you think?" said one of the so-called tailors. "I think it's really excellent," said the officer, not wishing to appear simple, and the emperor was finally convinced that he had employed the greatest tailors in history, tailors whose suits would make him not only the talk of the kingdom, but would make him famous throughout the world for his glittering appearance, his fabulous wealth, and, of course, his unprecedented intelligence.
I will be remembered in history for being the greatest emperor of all time,
he said to himself as he looked towards the empty looms. But on a second glance, he saw nothing whatsoever in the looms' empty frames.
Have I been fooling myself?
He mused.
Perhaps I am a simpleton and unfit to be an emperor.
Are you happy with our excellent work? Inquired one of the rascals. We've worked so hard, and the result is that you have the best suit that we've ever made. I think it's absolutely fabulous, said a meagre maid as she served the emperor a cup of his favourite herbal tea.
Yes, said the emperor. I couldn't agree more. It's the most marvellous suit ever created.
And on saying this, he gave the two impostors another huge bag of gold and a bonus payment of diamonds, pearls, rubies, and other precious stones. Once the rogue traders had put the finishing touches to their so-called masterpiece, the emperor invited a selection of his courtiers to view the tailor's creation. The suit was deemed a triumph by one and all. Despite the fact that in reality the courtiers were already whispering that the suit might not actually exist. One of the emperor's slightly mischievous courtiers boldly made a suggestion, loudly for all to hear. This suit is so important that we should have a procession through the streets for all the good people of the kingdom to see. I agree. That's a great idea, said the emperor's wife, with as much mischief in her voice as the courtier who had made the outrageous suggestion.
I agree,
said the slightly hesitant emperor. A date was set for a huge procession and street party in which the emperor would show off his new clothes. The night before the procession, the emperor could not sleep and paced around his bedroom in his ostentatious satin pyjamas, muttering to himself,
I have to think about it. Could it be that I am but a simpleton?
He mumbled.
Of course not. It is as clear as day that the suit I am to wear at the procession is the most noble suit ever to be worn,
he replied to himself, thus justifying the reason for going on a procession that would put him on display to the entire kingdom. Stop worrying, said the empress. You need some rest. Tomorrow is your big day.
You're right,
said the emperor.
It's just a matter of last-minute nerves.
The empress gave him a cup of herbal tea in order to relax him and grant her husband a few hours of precious sleep. During his deep sleep, he dreamt of a rapturous reception, not just from the people of his kingdom, but from the whole wide world. In his dream, his suit was the talk of noblemen and royal circles across the globe.
"Ha! This man is genius to have such a suit made,"
said one noted royal from a far-flung land. "He is fit to rule the world," said another well-known, very important person. However, in the morning, when the emperor woke from his deep sleep, he was feeling a little uneasy and restless, despite giving out an aura that exuded both arrogance and confidence in equal measures.
Today is the day that my importance will be realized by one and all,"
he boasted to the Empress. "Today will certainly be an interesting one," replied the Empress, "and I am sure the good people of the kingdom will be talking about the event for years to come." On the big day, the two impostors draped the Emperor in his new invisible attire.
"Oh, that jacket suits you,"
said one with a sly, crooked smile on his face.
"The trousers and gown are a joy to behold,"
said the other, as he went through the motions of fitting the Emperor with the fictitious suit.
"There you go, Your Highness."
Once the fitting was complete, the deluded Emperor gazed at himself in the looking-glass and vainly gave a twirl, gaining applause from the maids, servants, ministers, and courtiers who were by now pandering to his every need. The Emperor was then transported by a horse-drawn carriage through the kingdom, wearing nothing more than the invisible suit. Behind him, in the open-top carriage, were the two newly appointed royal tailors who were wearing some spectacular clothes purchased with the money they had accumulated through their ill-gotten gains.
"How good we look compared with that fool,"
said one.
"I know. It's great, isn't it?"
said the other, as they waved to the crowds along with the vain and delirious Emperor. The crowd cheered and waved with delight as their ruler gave a twirl in order to give his now hysterical fans a good look at his glamorous new suit.
"But look,"
shouted an old apple woman.
"the Emperor is wearing nothing at all. He has no clothes on whatsoever." "She's right, you know,"
said a beggar, pointing at the Emperor in sheer disbelief. In no time at all, the crowd was gasping in shock and even booing the now humiliated Emperor. The mortified Emperor suddenly went bright red as he came to realize that he had made a complete fool of himself. He turned round and looked towards the tailors, who in turn leapt from the carriage and disappeared into the crowd.
"Quick, let's get out of here."
And as they did so, they dropped all their gold and precious stones on the street. The beggars and poorest members of the kingdom scrambled to pick up the impostors' lost treasures. This caught the Emperor's eye, and it gave him some level of satisfaction. At least through his own ridiculous vanity, something positive had happened. Someone other than the Emperor had gained from his vast wealth. Knowing nothing could be done to change his unfortunate situation, the Emperor continued to parade through the streets with no clothes. But from that day on, he ceased to be vain, self-centered, and pompous. He even occasionally chuckled with the Empress when thinking of the day he learnt that there was more to life than appearing to be more important than others.
He liked to dress in the very, very best, from his head down to his toes.